Hello again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder. It's August 18th, 2014. Be a Monday. Diocese of, whatever. It's a trademark. Or it's a DBA or assumed name or a fictitious entity. What it's not is the legal title to the civil corporation hiding behind the veil. Right? It's a fictitious name for a corporation. The legal title is the name, which can sue or be sued, is what has a principal address, directors, registered agent, right? It's the legal title name. Not what you necessarily see, but what's on the documents. This corporation has a president and board. If you want to do business with an office, you would have to address the legal title and its president, not the diocese of and its bishop. The civil government only recognizes properly formed artificial persons. And if your parish congregation was properly formed, I believe it is just being suppressed, and you, as member properly registered within said congregation, all parish property held by others would be returned to the stewardship of the congregational members. And the individuals may need to do something also. We may have to do something. We need to change our residence, our domicile, to be in that parish. Bonus. We're going to talk about the IRS Governmental Information Letter, what you might be able to use it for. Such as, this has to do with things that, the IRS says certain organizations have to have if they're tax exempt. Well, if you're a government entity, you're supposed to have a determination letter of some kind. And, and so that would mean courts, county, state, federal agencies, and so forth. They should all have this thing, and you would ask them for it. If they refuse to give it to you, well, then you'd call the U.S. Treasury Inspector General for tax purposes, and then expect them to call you and say, well, am I wrong, right? This is what they're supposed to have. They don't seem to have it. They're breaking the law, not me. I'm pointing out a crime. I would be guilty of misprision of felony if I didn't bring this to your attention, right? And now, what's your testimony? Because I'm here as a witness for God to make sure you do the right thing. And in the future, subscribe to robcourtofrecord.wordpress.com. If you would, please, if you want to have updates to what's going on and maybe the files and so forth to what I'm doing, it'd be a lot easier if you just did it that way. AOL's made it difficult for me to do what I used to do, so I'm going to go to robcourtofrecord.wordpress.com. It's a site that's been set up for a number of years now, and I'm just going to post it there. And if you're a subscriber, when I post something, yeah, you'll get a message. Beautiful. Now, because it doesn't want to take all sorts of documents and so forth as files, I either have to turn them into, I guess, PDFs is what Cynthia told me, or put them into a share file someplace else with a link to it. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Nevertheless, robcourtofrecord.wordpress.com. So, Diocese of is a trademark. Let's look at an example. This would be the United States Patent and Trademark Office, right? .gov. And you see right here it says Diocese of Palm Beach. Well, what's that about? Let's find out. Diocese of Palm Beach. That's the word mark. Not a trademark, it's a word mark. Owner, registrant, Diocese of Palm Beach Incorporated, Corporation, Florida. North Military Road, Florida, blah, 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 blah. That's probably the address of that's the address of the principal. Right, so the Diocese of Palm Beach is owned by a company called the Diocese of Palm Beach Incorporated. We're going to look at their paperwork here in just a second. In fact, let's do that right now. But to do that, I'm going to have to do what? I want to get rid of some of this stuff. I got too many things open. I'll get rid of that. More examples. Put it over here. Diocese of Palm Beach. Articles of Incorporation. Here we go. All right, so we've looked at this before. Well, something like this before. I don't know if we looked at this one before. Here is the United States Corporation Company putting this paperwork in. That's very interesting. People say that that's the company that is the United States now, United States Corporation Company. I'll follow up on that later. But these are articles of incorporation. Articles of incorporation of Diocese of Palm Beach Incorporated. We, the undersigned, with other persons being desirous to form a corporation for charitable purposes under the provisions of 617 Florida, do the following. The name of the corporation shall be Diocese of Palm Beach, comma, INC, period. Right? That's the legal title. And its principal address, is 9995 North Military Trail, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Yada, 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 yada. Right down to 6. They even give you the 4 plus 4. Corporation exists in perpetuity. Corporation shall be deemed to commence its existence on the date of filing and the assignment of a charter number. So did they get a charter number? Now, what I'm going to show you some other stuff. It looks like you're supposed to take this stuff to the city first, and then you put it into the Secretary of State. But just to show you that this is, you can find this online yourself, right? Subscribers. The name and residence of the subscriber to these articles of incorporation is the Most Reverend Anthony G. O'Connell, Bishop of the Diocese of Palm Beach, P.O. Box, whatever. The officer of the corporation shall be president, one or more vice presidents, a secretary, a treasurer, and additional assistant secretaries or treasuries. As such, a person may be hold more than one office at one time. Go figure. Yeah. So we'll have as few people as possible doing as many different, wearing as many hats as possible. Who's the president? Well, the bishop is, of course. Vice president, I bet you that was his vicar general, treasury, secretary, whoever they are. The business affairs shall be managed by the board of directors. Who's the names and addresses of the persons who are to serve as directors for the ensuing years, or until the first annual meeting of the corporation, if they ever meet. Right? Until then, it's just going to be these people. I bet you they've never met. And here's the bishop and some priest. So, in this case, this bishop isn't called a corporation sole. He's called the sole member. The sole member of this corporation shall adopt the bylaws for conduct of the corporation's business. Yada, yada, yada. Limitation activities. No part of the net earnings of the corporation shall inure to the benefit of, distribute of, members, directors, officers, so forth and so on. No person, firm, or corporation shall ever, blah, blah, blah. How many pages we got left in this thing? Initial registered office and agent. The street address, right? The street address. This again, the street address is what determines your domicile. Seems like to me. Of the initial registered office of this corporation is 110 Merrick Way. Right? That's the registered office. Coral Gables, Florida. And the registered agent is some Esquire. They got an attorney acting as their agent. Okay, done as under notary seal. Acceptance by the registered agent for his job. He accepted the job. So this is who you would serve if you want to. You got a beef against what you think is the Diocese of Palm Beach. It's actually the Diocese of Palm Beach Incorporated. Let me go back to one of these first pages here. Not that first page. So what was the purposes of this? The corporation is organized not for profit. Well, in that case, they have to show you their paperwork. Talked about that stuff last week. The specific purposes of the corporation are establish, receive, maintain, fund or funds for operation support of the Diocese of Palm Beach. Right? So who's the Diocese of Palm Beach? Well, that should be the people of Palm Beach. Right? Of that particular community of the faithful. To that end, to take and receive, gift, grant, bequest, devise, otherwise, any and all property for the sort and nature without limitation, as to amount or value, and to manage, administer, invest, reinvest, dispose of the same, to administer endowment funds, that would be the parish endowment funds, from time to time, pay and apply the funds and property of the corporation, including the principal as well as income thereof, for the support of the Diocese of Palm Beach. Who's the Diocese of Palm Beach? It's the people of Palm Beach. And they're supposed to be doling this out. The problem is the people of Palm Beach haven't incorporated civilly. And therefore you don't have a civil personality, and a public civil personality. They can't, you don't have a body politic. We're improperly organized, right? So like last week read, or the last video, that a parish in civil law is seen, basically is presumed to be an unincorporated association, which means there is no legal foundation to its existence. If it was an incorporated association, such as an apostolic association, incorporated as an apostolic association, 501D, then it would have a civil personality separate from the archbishop. It would be its own public juridic person, or public civil person. It probably already is a juridic person. The juridic person is what it is in the church, and it needs to be incorporated to be seen in the civil society. And I think that's already been done once, way back when they first set up your parish, and then it's just never been talked about. And that you're not going to find those records but one place, and that would be in the city. But without any further ado, this is just showing that what you think is the Archdiocese of Palm Beach is actually the Archdiocese of Palm Beach Incorporated. And here's its articles of incorporation. And so at its primary business, at its primary address, you should be able to go in there and find all the documents you want to find for this to be a nonprofit. And we kind of looked at some of that last week, right? That we found the Diocese of Yakima, that legal title is the corporation for the Catholic Bishop of Yakima. Something to that effect. That was how they named this one, that one, right? This one they just named the Diocese of Palm Beach, comma, and it looks like they even had, I bet you got to put them frickin' spaces in there. Right? That if you don't do it this way, and if you address it any other way than this, then you're not addressing the proper office. Now you're really getting nitpicky, but I'd be asking them that, and at the end of the day though, this is their address right here. It's the principal address. And if you want to serve them papers, right, well then you're going to give them to their registered agent, I believe. Right, and their registered agent, as we saw, was J. Patrick Fitzgerald, Esquire. Right, he's got an address someplace on here, I think we saw. Yeah. Initial registered office of this corporation is 110 Merrick Way. Now, of course, when you look at everything else, you may find that these things have changed, but they would have had to put something into the Secretary of State's office. All right, enough on that. So, what was this? Nonprofit Corporation Annual Report. Place of business, right? That hasn't changed. Current mailing address. Certificate of status desired. Well, yeah, we would like that, sure. Name and address of current registered agent. Looks like it stayed the same. Officers. Apparently signed by the treasurer. Now this is, here we go. Here is an omission. This is supposed to be signed by the registered agent, but it hadn't been signed. So they're simulating a legal process, right? This is a simulation of a legal process because that isn't signed. The above named entity submits this statement for purposes of changing its registered office or registered agent or both in the state of Florida. Right? How do I know the signature line has anything to do with that frickin' statement? They just happen to put it there. That statement could just have as much to do with this guy signing it down here. Submits this statement for the purposes of changing its registered office or its registered agent, or both, in the state of Florida. I still have to question, why is it blank? So, alright. Okay, where were we at? What else do I want to talk about? I had lots of things. We looked at that one. Okay, we looked at this last week. You can find it online. This was between the Polish Roman Catholic St. Stanislaus Parish and the Archbishop and a bunch of other people. And this is like 2011, 2012, very, very recent. What came out of this is that everything the Archdiocese said was overturned by the, I won't say that. Everything that was said in here, at least, their findings in here are that whatever the Archdiocese brought up in the last go around were all without merit. And it's a very interesting read, but I don't want to read it again, and I'm not here to read it right now. But in here it does say that the church property hang on here. It defines what church property is, basically. And this is what it says. These canons, by their plain language, apply to property held by a juridic person. Now, a juridic person is only in the church. It's not a civil person, it's a juridic. A public juridic or private juridic person is equivalent to a corporation or incorporation in the civil society, but it's not the same. It's just equivalent. This is only in the church. All right, apply to property held by juridic persons. The property at issue here is not held by a juridic person. And it says, see the decree of some congregation, pro-clerics, dated 2004, finding that a civil corporation lacks juridic personality. So juridic is purely in the church and civil is purely in the civil. They don't cross the line. The property was alienated by the Archbishop and passed to the civil corporation, and thereby it ceased to be a church property since it no longer owned by a canonical moral person. The Archbishop in an archdiocese is not a civil entity. You can't take your issues for temporal problems to him because he's not a civil entity. For instance, I wrote a complaint a couple of years ago now, and I sent it to all sorts of people, pleas of the crown. I sent it to the diocese here in Grand Rapids. I was pointing out they were using color law and simulated legal process and all the shit I'm still talking about. And I got an answer back, said, they couldn't, unfortunately, they couldn't get involved in civil matters. Well, the reason for that is I hadn't contacted the civil side that I should have, such as the Diocese of Palm Beach, INC, period, couple spaces in there, at their address, addressing whoever the president of that corporation is, and his responsibility to me is one of the faithful. Or better yet, because I'm talking parish, now this is the thing, parishes are strictly under the guidance or under the jurisdiction of the Archbishop, as the Archbishop of the province, not just the Archbishop of his little area that he's an Archbishop of. He's the Archbishop of the province. The Archbishop of Detroit is over the province of Detroit. He could be called the Metropolitan of Detroit, but it's still the province of Detroit. So the Diocesan Bishop of Detroit is the Archbishop in his role as Metropolitan over the entire state of Michigan, called a province instead of a state, which can coexist at the same time. So what they had done in here is this had gone to, they had set up originally to have whatever the Archbishop's name was, comma, Archbishop of City of St. Louis, right? They set up a corporation that way, and they put it in his name and made him gave it to him in fee simple. And then he later on turned around and gave it to a corporation that was set up. But as we'll see, both of those were unlawful conveyances. And we have to go back in time a little bit further, because this is happening now, and they're talking about the church building and stuff. But what they're missing is that the congregation, all the property of the parish is the property of the congregation that was probably incorporated way, way, way back when, and then was kept quiet. They never had a meeting. Let's go see where that could have been. So, in this book, I found this other court case having to do with the same parish. It's like an appeals case where they write all the stuff in a book afterwards. I don't remember what the name of the book is, but it doesn't matter. You can find it. So, in 1888, an incorporated religious society, styled the Franciscan Fathers of the State of Missouri. Let's stop there. It's an incorporated religious society. This is already, what we're talking about right now, is a civil corporation. So it isn't church property that they can do anything with. It's only civil property. That anybody can do something with if they have a civil legal personality established within the state. So let's go on. By deed, fully executed, conveyed to Peter Richard Kendrick, Archbishop of the City of St. Louis, certain described lands in the city in trust for the congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis and its assigns. So this corporation gave to this corporation, Peter Richard Kendrick, Archbishop, as they put it in his name in fee simple, in trust for the congregation. When you read in here, they said there wasn't really a trust. It just said they were transferring property to them. They were transferring property to the Archbishop that the Franciscans were already holding in trust for this congregation, and that now they're going to give it to the Archbishop to hold for the congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis. Now, I bet you that this congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis, that term right there, is probably the name of a congregational parish that was set up as a corporation already, and it's what's being suppressed, and that the evidence to its existence is in the city of St. Louis, not in the state. Secretary of State. I'm not saying it couldn't be in the Secretary of State, but it had to be in the city of St. Louis to start with. Because here we go, right? This deed recited a consideration of $12,000, but according to evidence, no consideration was paid. Well, then it was a fraudulent conveyance. It never happened. Point two, the conveyance never happened. It was never given to the Archbishop because the Archbishop didn't pay the $12,000. The Sestake Trust, which is the beneficiary, that means the beneficiary, which is the congregation of St. Stanislaus, is composed of Polish communicants of the Roman Catholic Church residing in St. Stanislaus Parish in the city of St. Louis. All right, so you need to be residing in, so this is another name it could be, residing in St. Stanislaus Parish in the city of St. Louis. And go see if that's a corporation. Who are members of a certain church in said parish. So this isn't so much about the church and the church's property. This is about the parish and the parish's property, and they're members of a church in a parish. And we'll see that they have this thing called congregational parishes. The parish so this is what happened. The parish, the pastor or priest of the parish, urban, at the origin of the controversy, which gave rise to litigation, the congregation was a large and wealthy one. We understand, consisting of nearly 2,000 members owning property, including the church, a parochial school building valued at $300,000, receiving $7,000 upwards, and so forth. Right? So that's what the congregation owned, because the congregation are the ones that paid for this stuff. Right? They put in the money. The people of the parish put in the money. They're the owners. Somebody at the church came by later and said, well, that's our property. If you want to be a Catholic church, you got to give us the deed. The buildings were erected with contributions from the members, and yearly income is collected in the same way. The congregation maintained a parochial school and perhaps other auxiliary enterprises. So they had all this going. The congregation did all by themselves, and then Old Urban came in. Announced the purpose, because they wanted to build a new building, and they might have to have do a corporation. So pastor announced the purpose to do this to the congregation, and no one objected, though it is not in proof that a vote was taken on the question. It was never brought to a vote. He just said it in passing. No one objected, so he went ahead, him and 5 other members he picked, and they opened up this corporation with articles of agreement of the Polish Roman Catholic St. Stanislaus Parish. A different name for the parish, a different corporation they opened up. So instead of and declared in the preamble they had associated themselves with the purpose of forming a religious association and agreed to the following articles of the Constitution. They only had 3 articles: what the name was, what the purpose was, and where the business meetings were going to be, and they were going to be held in the residence of the priest of the parish. These 3 articles were constituted the Articles of Agreement and Constitution of the proposed society, and were submitted to the Circuit Court with petition praying for pro forma degree of incorporation. At due time, decree was entered. Right? They didn't incorporate with at the state level until they had gone to the Circuit Court first and got a decree, because that Circuit Court's in the city. The Articles of Agreement with proper certificate from the clerk of the Circuit Court and the Recorder of Deeds were filed in the office of the Secretary of State, and later issued a certified copy of the same as the charter of the corporation. I think the Secretary of State is what's at the city. I don't really know what they mean by that. See, your county, they're talking the county court and the Recorder of Deeds at county level, I would think. Or this is all at city level, but even at county level, those are supposed to be state offices. The county doesn't have its own jurisdiction. Those are the administrative offices of the state at a local level. Right? So they went to the clerk of the Circuit Court, and then it went to the Recorder of Deeds, and then it got filed. So you're looking for articles of agreement. That's what I'd be asking the Circuit Court clerk, the clerk of the Circuit Court, for. I like to look at your articles of agreement that you have on file. This business was concluded, and Archbishop Kendrick, as trustee of the congregation, executed a deed to the Polish Roman Catholic Stanislaus Parish, a corporation organized under the laws of the state of Missouri, of the same place, conveying to the corporation all properties which had theretofore been conveyed to him by the Franciscan fathers in trust for the said congregation. Because I don't know where we started with this, what the backstory is. Where did this start? Okay. This is like in 1888. So a lot of things have happened prior to 1888 where they've been given the property. So it went from the Franciscans, it went over to the Archbishop. He's going to turn around and give it to this newly created corporation that nobody in the congregation had anything to do with except the priest and 5 hand-picked people. And they're going to make themselves the successor to the rights of the Sesta Q Trust. In other words, to the beneficiary, the Congregation of St. Stanislaus. So what should have gone to the Congregation of St. Stanislaus is now going to go to this corporation of 5 people. And then they adopted some bylaws. It's not enough to state. It's enough to state concerning the adopted regulations that they provided for the government of the corporation by 6 directors to be appointed by the Archbishop of St. Louis for fulfilling the vacancies in the board by him. So they closed the door on the congregation by making this law that once this thing was formed and the paperwork and the deeds had been conveyed, that only the Archbishop could pick the people sitting on this board. Broad powers are vested with the priest and the parish president, the board, primarily as directors control the corporation, but ultimately the Archbishop of the Diocese, by virtue of his authority, to appoint the directors of a corporation that unlawfully was given property. The members and officers of the body politic must be members of the St. Stanislaus congregation. These defendants, except one of them, have continued as directors of the corporation, managed its affairs, dealt with the property. In truth, the evidence shows that Urban, the pastor, has dominated directly the entire management of the temporal and spiritual affairs of the church, and through him the Archbishop of the Diocese of St. Louis. Once a year the pastor would read a statement for the receipts and disbursement to the congregation, but he did not hold himself responsible to them or bind himself to make a report. He just quit talking about it. Right, in 1904, members of the parish became dissatisfied with the school. So basically what happened is all the wheels fell off of what they had put into place, the congregation, when it went to the Archbishop in trust, because their civil corporation has never been properly formed. Now, if there is one, so this is where we get back to where we're going to now. So that's the backstory, I guess. All I really want to say on that for right now. I may say more when I read more into it, but first of all, there's no church property if it's held by a civil corporation, and the Diocese of whatever is a civil corporation, so it's not church property. That's good to know. Here's a few more facts, though. The congregational parish, which was created by the Franciscans and subject to control entirely by the Archbishop within the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, under church law, continued to have a parallel existence with the corporation. Right? There's a congregational parish, which was created by the Franciscans. In other words, it was incorporated by the Franciscans. Subject to the control by the Archbishop, which all parishes that are truly a parish within the Catholic Church are under the jurisdiction directly from the Archbishop. It's Archbishop to the parish. There's nobody else between them. Archbishop in trust for the congregation of St. Stanislaus of the city of St. Louis. Okay, I think that's the name of the corporation right there. That this congregation had been set up as a canonical juridic person, but it has not been incorporated as a civil legal person. And so if somebody at this church was to go find the congregation of St. Stanislaus of St. Louis, you're going to find that it had been, but there never been any meetings or anything, and that it's sitting there with what you need to do to become a member, and as a member, then the property that the Archbishop is holding for this congregation can come back to the congregation. Sesta trust, a barbarous phrase to signify the beneficiary of an estate held in trust. There you go. At the origins of the St. Stanislaus, its church and other properties were owned by ecclesiastic moral persons, first the Franciscan province and later the Archdiocese, and were therefore church property. That's what they wanted to say, but it wasn't owned by the Franciscans, or maybe it was, but the Franciscan province ended up creating a civil personality, the Franciscan fathers of the state of Illinois, or the state of Missouri, whatever the hell it was. And that's the ones that transferred the property to a I don't know if that was set up as a corporate soul or not. It just depends on how they set up St. Louis. In Chicago, it is a corporate soul, right? They enacted special legislation within the government of Illinois, the state of Illinois, which probably doesn't exist either, but where does it end? I don't know. The property was alienated from the Archdiocese, passed to civil corporation, and thereby has ceased to be, right? So once it goes to a civil corporation, it's no longer church property. and it went to a civil corporation called the Franciscan Friars of the State of Illinois, who transferred it to another civil corporation called whatever the guy's name was, Archbishop of the City of St. Louis. Defendant, the address which is located in the City of St. Louis, where its articles of agreement were filed. So again, even when the Polish Roman, the second one, the Polish Roman Catholic St. Stanislaus Parish, the one set up by the priest and his 5 cronies, it says its articles of agreement were filed in the City of St. Louis. Go to the City of St. Louis to find or go to the city. When you know the legal title of a corporation you're looking for that is doing business in your city, go to the city to find their paperwork. The court has jurisdiction over defendant because the defendant is a Missouri corporation. Okay, well, whatever. The Franciscan Friars of the state of Missouri, right? They're the ones who conveyed the property. Well, that's the name of a corporation. To the Most Reverend Peter Richard Kenrick, Archbishop of the City of St. Louis, in trust for the congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis. There's that congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis. That's what you need to find the articles of incorporation for and inhabit that corporation. Or inhabit, there's already been approved a public juridic person, and it just needs to be incorporated. By now saying you want to run it not as an unincorporated parish, as civil law sees parishes, as an unincorporated association, you're going to tell them you want to run it as a 501d apostolic association. Okay. What else we got? I don't know what else I had. I'm going to stop for a second. Okay, a little more backstory. This is another version of a court case, the same court case, or a different court case with the same people. I'll show you who it is exactly. It says the Diocese of St. Louis was established in 1826. In 1847, the Diocese of St. Louis was elevated to a metropolitan archdiocese and is generally referred to as the Archdiocese of St. Louis, although that's really not its name. It's the Metropolitan Archdiocese, or whatever its real true name is. On February 29th, 1888, a deed was recorded in the recorder's office of the City of St. Louis, Missouri, conveying the property. All right, so this happened in the city. This had nothing to do with the state. This is in the city, in the recorder's office. A deed was recorded. From the Franciscan Friars of the state of Missouri to the Most Reverend Peter Kenrick, Archbishop of St. Louis, in trust for the congregation of St. Stanislaus of the City of St. Louis. This is all civil matter now. So the place to look for the paperwork for these things appears to be in the city. And what this is this is actually one of these I've shown you is what the court had to say about this case. This, what I'm showing you, is what the plaintiff had to say about the case. And this is the one happening here from 2004 to now, for a corporation out in St. Louis, Missouri. I don't want to spend much more time on it, so hang on a second. Be right back. Okay, here's another court case. The Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield, a corporation sole, plaintiff versus the City of Springfield. And see how they do this? Dominic J. Sobrano, in his official capacity as mayor of the City of Springfield. Springfield City Council, Patrick Somebody, in his official capacity as city councilor for the City of Springfield. All right, so you can see they're taking what is your equivalent of a artificial person, your all capital letter name, in his official capacity as mayor of the city of Springfield, which is the de jure office. Springfield City Council, Patrick J. Merrick, see now that should exist, in his official capacity as city council for the city of Springfield. All right, so these people are in their official capacity, Not really knowing what that means. Honorable Michael A. U.S. District Judge, right? U.S. District Judge. There's a guy to go find. Who is this dude? He's U.S. District Judge. Proper case judge. Appeal from United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts. That guy. Now it's before Lynch, Chief Judge. Seeley and Howard, Circuit Judges. Well, who are they, man? What's their proper name? Where's their first name? None of that really matters. Who cares? But this is what it says. This is what the Chief Judge had to say. The Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield, RCB, from now on. So when you see RCB, we're talking the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield. Its rights under Federal Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. Institutionalized persons. That would be us. I think we've been Institutionalized Persons Act. I'm going to have to read that act. 42 U.S.C. 2000 double C. What do I want to get here? So RCB. What was RCB again? This is page 4. We're going to say RCB is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield. What is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield? The Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield is a corporation sole incorporated under the laws of Massachusetts. It is the legal entity through which the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield operates. A corporation sole consists of only one person at a time, but the corporation may pass from one person to the next without any interruption in its legal status. Right? The king is dead. Long live the king. So, if you were in Springfield, Massachusetts, and you saw somebody called the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield, you need to understand that that's actually the corporation. It's got a little bit longer name, right? I believe the proper terminology for it would be the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield, a corporation sole. That's the way they showed it for how they do it for Chicago. Okay, so things just are not as they appear. Now here's one for Massachusetts, Springfield, another one. Affidavit of appointment as of March 9th, 2004. Now comes Most Reverend Timothy A. McDonald. On oath deposes and says, I, Most Reverend Timothy A. McDonald, Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield, give this affidavit. So I believe, I don't know whose title that is, Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield, give this affidavit in order to comply with Section 4, 368, 1998, or 1898 Act, special act they did just for him, which established the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield as a corporation sole. Right? Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield as a corporation sole. I hereby swear that I am a citizen of the United States of America. How can you do that? I want to see your proof. I want to see your certificate. And I lawfully and regularly hold the office of Bishop of Springfield. So the office is called the Office of Bishop of Springfield. And that on March 9, 2004, I accepted the appointment as bishop and commenced the duties thereof. I have attached to this affidavit a copy of my letter of appointment to the position of the Bishop of Springfield, right, to the office of the Bishop of Springfield, and a copy of whatever. So his office, the bishop's office, is the bishop of the office of Springfield. And who gave him that office? Who gave him that office? John Paul, bishop servant of servants and God, of God. Right? He gave him that office. Appoint you Bishop of Springfield. That's the office he holds for the Pope. Right? So he's not the diocese bishop, he's the Bishop of Springfield. That's the proper title for him. And then he looks like to me, when you look at this, and he's the guy that's in charge of because he holds that office, he's ex officio then, for lack of a better term, going to be in this office. Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield. That isn't what he was given. That's a corporate soul. He was given the Bishop of Springfield by the Pope. And then this was the act that did it, right? So this stuff is easy enough to find online. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through it. Just showing all these different variations of, things aren't the way they seem. An act to incorporate the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield and his successors as corporation sole to hold, manage certain property for religious and charitable purposes. And the reason he's holding the property is because your parish has not been properly constituted as a civil law entity so that it can take control of the property. All right. Okay, this is easy enough to find. Subsection 203, bylaws, the Catholic Bishop of Chicago, comma, a corporation sole. On the Archdiocese of Chicago website, they have all this is book 1 general norms, right? They got book 1 through 5, all these general norms or whatever they're called. And these are what pertain to that particular archdiocese. Outside of what canon law says, these are the norms of the archdiocese. And this talks about how it was set up. Right? That they had a couple of acts, 1845 and 1861, establishing the civil law entity known as the Catholic Bishop of Chicago, a corporation sole. Right? It's a civil law entity. It isn't him. But if you want to deal with the temporal property, it's who you got to contact. The corporation sole exists for civil law purposes and is recognized in canon law principles and intended consistent with. Right? So when they wrote up the bylaws, they said that they would agree to canon law. That's all they really had to say. So now the corporation has to agree to canon law. And the civil law courts would enforce that. Now, why is that important? Who knows? Well, let's look at some other definitions real quick. Right, so a lot of what I'm going to talk about now comes out of here. Like a diocese is the archdiocese in canon law. A diocese is a particular church in which and from which the one and only Catholic Church exists. That's why you got to be attached to a diocese. Is a particular church in which and from which the one and only Catholic Church exists. I want the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. How else can I have an apostolic association unless I'm in the Apostolic Church? It's described as a portion of God which is entrusted to a bishop. And okay, so the bishop was given a province. That's why he's a diocesan bishop over a province. Province of Detroit happens to be the size of the state of Michigan. For him to shepherd with the cooperation of the Presbyterian, all the others, and adhering to the pastor gathered by him in Holy Spirit through the gospel, the Eucharist. So there's only one dude who's the bishop. And that dude, that's the bishop, I believe, is the one that sits in the corporation that was established by the Pope in the first place for that particular diocese. That's what this is. Right, that at some point in the past, the Pope created a Diocese of Chicago and he put a bishop in there. When he created a Diocese of Chicago, that was a corporation that was incorporated over in Rome. So, I don't know who's the bishop. All I know is a bishop, all he is a bishop is nobody else than an ordained priest, somebody who's been ordained to the fullness of the priesthood. And if your priest at your church can't say that, then he's not an ordained priest. He's an ordained deacon, commonly called a priest. But he's not the same. So bishops are placed at heads of dioceses and are constituted pastors in the church so that they are teachers of doctrine, priests of sacred worship, ministers of governance. The bishop has all ordinary power. This is the diocesan bishop. Exercise the ministry of governance. Bishop does so legislative, executive, judicial authority. Okay, but let's do, without going through the whole thing. Okay, so when you see Archbishop of Chicago, it's not a civil law title. It's just an ecclesiastic title. That's only something that can, the only thing he can deal with is something within the church. Now, these priests, pedophile priests and so forth, they're not in the church. They're employees of the church. You can't take it to the Archbishop of Chicago. It's the wrong office. He's not the one employing them. The one employing them is the civil law title, the Catholic Bishop of Chicago, a corporate soul. The Archdiocese of Chicago, it's an ecclesiastic entity. Again, it's not in civil law, right? It's a canonical juridic person, public juridic person. Same with the Archbishop. It's a juridic person. A deanery is an ecclesiastic entity. Again, it's a juridic person. In Roman, the deanery is either the jurisdiction or residence of a dean. Now, why is that important? Well, I think the deanery, I think that guy's appointed by the Archbishop. Going on here. Code of Canon Law grants the bishop possibility to join together several neighboring parishes into special groups such as deaneries. Each diocese or other particular church is divided into distinct parts or parishes. To foster pastoral care, they can be put together in a deanery, special group. Okay? For pastoral care, that's what we're talking about, the pastoral care aspect, which is the governance and so forth. Each deanery is headed by somebody who's called a dean, a vicar forain, an archpriest, an archdeacon, had many names in the past. A priest appointed by the bishop after consultation with priest exercising ministry in the deanery. Appointed by the bishop. Additionally, the dean must follow particular norms of the diocese. Mentions the dean must visit parishes of the district in accord with regulations made by the diocesan bishop. My point is, if you want to know where the parishes are, go talk to the dean. We're trying to find the parishes that have been okayed by the bishop. I guess we should get to that because we will right now. What is a parish in canon law? It is a certain community of Christ's faithful, stably established within a particular church. Right? So they're not the church, they're within a particular church, whose pastoral care under the authority of a diocesan bishop is entrusted to a parish priest as the proper pastor, as opposed to a quasi-parish, which, unless the law provides otherwise, is equivalent to a parish. Quasi-parishes, a certain community of Christ's faithful, the difference is a parish is under the authority of a diocesan bishop and a quasi-parish isn't. And I didn't have time to download it. Patrick in Arizona, he found bylaws saying they're setting up a quasi-parish. Parishes of an archdiocese. A parish is canonically distinct from the archdiocese as a separate public juridic person, right? In civil law, a parish has typically been understood as operating as an unincorporated association. Your parish has been set up as a public juridic person. It's already there. But it's unincorporated. It needs to be incorporated into an apostolic association or whatever it needs to be. This 203.4, this is off that corporate soul paperwork from Chicago. It says a parish in Code of Canon Law is a public juridic person and a certain community of the Christian faithful, stably constituted in a particular church, whose pastoral care is entrusted to a pastor. This is what they wrote: parochius, in parentheses, as its proper pastor, under the authority of a diocesan bishop. Well, what's a frickin' parochius? a person responsible for supplying traveling officials with shelter and food. I don't see anything there where it says it's a frickin' ordained priest. Another one is commissary. What's that? Well, it's a person responsible to supply traveling officials with shelter and food. So that's who the diocesan bishop has entrusted the pastoral care of the parish to. The parochius. And he's supposed to be the one that a diocesan bishop in the diocese entrusted to him all ordinary, proper, immediate power which is required for the exercise of his pastoral function, except in cases of law or decree. A supreme pontiff, in certain circumstances, canon law directs diocesan bishop to exercise this authority with advice, special times, consent, constituted bodies, blah, 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 blah. The pastor represents the parish in its canonical juridic affairs affecting determinations about the parish and its good. So the pastor, being the parochius, the commissary, the dude who's supposed to give you your stuff, represents the parish in its canonical juridic affairs, church affairs, affecting the determination about the parish and the parish's goods. In matters of civil law, parishes, the archdiocese, and other ecclesiastic public persons have operated in a manner so as to respect their status as distinct entities as provided by canon law. So you know, they're all separate. Everyone has to go, and if you want to be seen civilly, you need to go and put your paperwork in. As a canonical public juridic person, parishes have canonical ownership of those goods that they have lawfully acquired. These are distinct from the goods canonically owned by the Archdiocese of Chicago. Consistently with the canonical state, the corporation's soul holds certain parish financial assets in trust for the benefit of each parish in a separate account, the status of which is publicly reported by the corporation soul. So as soon as the parish becomes not just a public juridic person in the church, but a public legal person in the civil society, it can hold these goods, which are no longer church goods, but civil goods. They're no longer church goods because the church moved them out of the church. Ecclesiastic property in the United States. So they're doing this on, now all this is being said, you know, where it can either be good or bad, in my opinion. And I believe it was set up that way on purpose, right? So that eventually when the good found it, they could use it, and this is what the good's going to use. This is under, what did I say this was under? Ecclesiastic property in the United States. I believe this is in the Catholic Encyclopedia, where it says, since the Third Plenary Council, that was like the late 1800s, the question of holding church property has more than once been discussed by American bishops. And at present time, in addition to the fee simple, which I think is what St. Louis did, and the corporation sole, which is what Chicago and Springfield did, Springfield, Massachusetts, a modified system of trustee method was found considered favorable, has found considerable favor. Concerning this, the St. Paul Public Bulletin says, right, so this is in a St. Paul Catholic Bulletin, wherever that is. Not only is it not true that the archbishops at their meeting in 1911 discouraged the holding of church property by local churches, but on the contrary, they declared it to be the best solution to the problem under consideration. And while in some states, owing to peculiar legislative enactments, other methods of holding church property are in vogue, yet it was admitted by the assembled prelates that the holding of church property by local parish corporations was by far the safest method. If the Archdiocese of St. Paul, each church is incorporated separately and independently from all others. Members of this corporation are ex officio, the ordinary of the diocese, vicar general, pastor, parish. Pastor of the parish who selects 2 laymen from the parish to represent the congregation. That's the church. What about the congregation parish? Which is, this church is within a parish. All right, that's what's missing, is that incorporation. The church has been incorporated. In addition to these separate parochial corporations, there are general diocesan corporations known as the Diocese of St. Paul, which is invested with controlling the property belonging to the diocese, not directly controlled by the aforesaid parish corporations. All right, so some property is church property, apparently, and some property is parish property, and so they didn't give that property, the parish property, to the church. They gave the church's property, and the diocesan bishop is still holding other parish property, and that parish property, in my opinion, is the property of the congregation. The rents, the titles, the deeds, all that kind of stuff, it belongs to the laity, and that's how they're going to conform the temporal order to the will of the Lord, because they're going to constitute their parish congregation properly, with proper officers to make it a body politic that is directly under the jurisdiction of the Archbishop as the civil magistrate of the province. And so when we see problems local, we take them to him and he'll take care of them. Something along those lines. Anyway, I wasn't really trying to get to any particular point today. I'm just trying to get stuff off my desk, saying, well, look at this, look at this, look at this. And Roe was going to get the book, the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's called the Official Catholic Directory, which, as it turns out, is at a library not too far from her, but it's a reference book and she can't bring it back. And maybe we'll take a look at why we'd want to be looking at some of that stuff when I figure out where I put it all. There's that one. Here's Catholic. This is that Catholic Director Yakima. All right, where you're going to find a page that looks like this. Now, Rose says about a 3,000 page book. This is about directly in the middle then, 1528. But it says to the right hand side on this document, legal title, Corporation of the Catholic Bishop of Yakima. That's the legal title of what you're calling the Diocese of Yakima. For legal titles of parishes and diocesan institutions, consult the pastoral office. Well, here's the pastoral office. You would have to consult them. Don't go by what you see in here. This isn't necessarily the legal title they're going to use for these places. It's just the title they use, like Diocese of Yakima. If you want the legal title, you got to consult the pastoral office. So you would go and find in here, for instance, it's not that hard to find, right? Let's just go to it. Institutions. Where's the frickin' parishes? Clergy, parishes, missions, and so forth. Right? So you could say, hey, you could call that office the pastoral office. I'm looking at the official Catholic directory, and it says I should contact you to get the legal title of my parish. Can you help me? And blah, blah, blah. I say, well, the legal title is what the corporation is called. I want to know what the corporation is called. Just like it says that the legal title to the Diocese of Yakima, or whatever your diocese is the corporation of the Catholic Bishop of Yakima. So, what is the legal title to, whatever you find in here they're calling your parish? Whatever they're calling it in here, they have in their records the legal title. And we want the legal title to it. Well. Is there anything else I wanted to go through? Oh, okay, yeah. Public and private juridic persons. I'm going to show you what a private juridic person looks. One that exists just in the church. Right? I believe that it's Robert Allen Ritlewski, upper lowercase, is the private juridic person that was created by my baptism. And I think they create one for everybody. If you get baptized, well, then you're going to get your share of the kingdom of heaven, but they still create one for everybody. And your public juridic person, or your public civil person, is this dude here, uppercase, Robert Allen Ritlewski. This is out of the circuit court, just like they talked about going to the circuit court with your articles of incorporation or articles of association or articles of agreement, whatever it was, and you had to get a decree from the circuit court. Well, that's what this is. This is a certified copy of a record showing that a decree of some kind was given at some day for me in my all caps name. Well, then this is a decree showing that at some point I was given this name. But what I had never noticed before is, I bet you're supposed to go right here, was baptized. That right in here is supposed to be my Christian name. I don't have a Christian name. I just have a given name. Where's my Christian name? Rose said on hers it's got a Christian name on there. She was given a Christian name. It's the name of a saint. They always give you a Christian name. Some guy in Korea wanted to be baptized by the Pope, and so the Pope baptized him, and they said he took Francis as his Christian name. This doesn't have any Christian name on it. So I'm a baptized pagan. I don't have a Christian name. I'm not a Christian. I think that has something to do with this whole thing, is where's that name? Interesting stuff. And of course my mom is in her maiden name and my dad's in his name, so technically it looks like they weren't married, so I was an illegitimate baptized pagan. What a way to go through life. But this is my private juridic person in the church, and this is my civil law person. It's what's on your driver's license. And the problem is this guy isn't seen as the owner of this guy, all caps, because if you go to court and look at the docket, they're going to have your name like this: Ritlewski, comma, Robert Allen. Well, who the hell is that, man? That's a fictitious entity. That ain't me. Right? But that's how they have you in this society. It's called the enforced disappearance of a person. They're keeping this other dude from appearing. They won't sue you in your own name. If you had a sui juris legal personality, if you got sued, I would be sued as Robert Allen Ritlewski. I'd walk into the docket, and that would be on the docket. But that ain't what's on the docket. This is what's on the docket: Ritlewski, comma, Robert Allen. So there's a disconnect. They haven't been connected yet, and that's what we're working on, getting the two connected together so that I can say, hey, that's my property. I can already say it, but now I can prove it. Now I'll be able to prove it. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. I don't know how I did. Kind of fuzzy-headed today, but we'll see what else comes up. We'll see y'all.